I don't know anything about Batman.
Really?
In 1989, a studio memo leaked from Warner Bros. That nobody was supposed to see. It revealed the real story behind Tim Burton's Batman movie. Jack Nicholson was rewriting scenes while filming. Michael Keaton had panic attacks in the Batsuit. The budget exploded from $30 million to $48 million overnight. But the most shocking part was what happened during the final week of shooting. A secret decision nearly destroyed the entire movie. The memo contains details about fights, threats, and one producer's dangerous obsession that almost cost Warner Bros. Everything. Michael Nicholson was only 25 when he quit his job at United Artists and flew out to Hollywood with no contacts, no money, and one idea that everyone said was stupid. It was October 3, 1979, the day he and Benjamin Melniker bought the film rights to Batman from DC Comics. He wanted to make a serious Batman movie, not campy, not funny, not like the old TV show with POW and Zoke in flashing letters. He wanted something dark, something honest, something that showed the pain behind the mask. But nobody wanted that. One executive laughed in his face and told him Batman would never work because Robin and Marion had bombed. Studio after studio told him it was the worst idea they'd ever heard. They told him Batman was a joke. He said it felt like a 10-year human endurance test where everyone told him how bad he was and slammed every door in his face. From 1979 to 1989, he heard no over and over. But he never stopped. The biggest problem wasn't just that studios hated his idea, it was the shadow of Adam West. The 1966 TV show had turned Batman into a comedy, and for over 20 years, that's all anyone could see. Studio execs remembered the bright colors, the silly villains, the over-the-top music. They didn't see darkness or trauma or mystery. They saw a joke in tights. One executive literally told Nicholson, "Batman is a joke." Even back in 1965, when they did the original screen tests, they passed over real actors like Lyle Waggoner and Peter Duell and picked Adam West because he looked more cartoony. The show had been a hit, but that hit became a curse. It stuck to Batman like glue. Nobody wanted to take the character seriously. It didn't matter how good the pitch was. The minute they heard Batman, they thought of camp. They thought of laughs. Then came the weirdest twist. In the early 1980s, Hollywood almost made a comedy version. Ivan Reitman, the guy behind Ghostbusters, was attached to direct. He wanted Bill Murray as Batman and Eddie Murphy as Robin. But the plan fell apart fast when Eddie said he wanted to be Batman, not Robin. Murray refused to be the sidekick. He even joked later that in red and green, he looked like one of Santa's elves. They also wanted David Bowie as the Joker and David Niven as Alfred. The whole thing felt like a joke itself. Murray later said, skipping Batman to make Ghostbusters was the right call. And he was right. Hollywood still wasn't ready to see Batman as anything but funny. But everything changed in 1986, when Frank Miller released The Dark Knight Returns. It was a 4-issue miniseries that turned everything upside down. The story took place in a broken future. Bruce Wayne was 55, retired, bitter, and full of anger. Gotham was worse than ever. Superman worked for the government. The city was falling apart. The comic was violent, dark, political. It wasn't for kids, it was for adults who wanted to feel something real. Miller's style, with Klaus Janssen's art, was gritty and full of shadows. The first collected edition came out in November 1986 and became a bestseller. Warner Brothers finally took notice. They saw that a serious Batman could make money. Nicholson's original script, written 6 years earlier, suddenly made more sense. Tim Burton later said they modeled their 1989 movie on Miller's tone. That comic changed everything. And somehow, It was Tim Burton, of all people, who got the job. The guy who made Pee-wee's Big Adventure in 1985 was picked to direct the darkest superhero film ever made. But Burton wasn't just a quirky director. He had a personal connection to Batman. He said he related to Bruce Wayne as an orphan, as someone alone in his mind. He even included Batman Easter eggs in Pee-wee's movie, like the 1960s Batmobile sitting on the Warner Brothers backlot. His drawings convinced executives. His vision was strange, gothic, and bold. He saw Gotham as a place full of shadows and pain. Production designer Anton Furst called it dark from the beginning. Burton's outsider view was exactly what Batman needed. But when Warner Brothers announced Michael Keaton as Batman in August 1988, it all exploded. Keaton had starred in Mr. Mom and Night Shift. He was known for comedy. He wasn't tall or muscular. He had a receding hairline. Fans lost their minds. Warner Brothers got 50,000 complaint letters, the most in the studio's history. The mailroom couldn't keep up. Some fans ripped up Batman posters at comic shops. The hate was loud and organized. Then came the biggest blow. On November 1988, the Wall Street Journal ran a front-page article slamming the casting choice. That wasn't a movie blog or fan magazine. That was Wall Street. Business analysts started questioning if Warner Brothers had lost their minds. Bo Smith, a comic book writer, said if you saw Keaton in an alley wearing the Batsuit, you would laugh, not run in fear. The controversy was everywhere. To stop the fire, Warner Brothers rushed Bob Kane, Batman's co-creator, into public view. He admitted he panicked when he first heard about Keaton, but then he saw Clean and Sober, a drama where Keaton played an addict, and he changed his mind. Kane started speaking at press events and comic cons, telling fans to give the guy a chance. He told the Wall Street Journal the film was not a comedy at all. It helped, a little, but the rage didn't stop. Fans even started petitions to cancel the casting. The wording was blunt: a fine comedy actor, but not the Batman. They called Keaton short, said he couldn't do stunts. People stood outside theaters gathering signatures. This was pre-internet. They did it with pens and clipboards. And they meant it. Then came the emergency trailer. In December 1988, Warner Brothers released a 90-second teaser that wasn't even finished. It had no music. Scenes were choppy, but it worked. Audiences cheered. Fans bought tickets just to see the trailer, then walked out before the movie started. People made bootleg VHS copies and sold them at conventions. That trailer flipped the hate. Suddenly, people got excited. The tone was dark. Batman looked serious. The damage control had worked. But behind the scenes, chaos ruled. Sam Hamm, the screenwriter, finished his script just before the Writers Guild strike began on March 7, 1988. For 22 weeks, from March to August, no WGA writers could work. Hamm couldn't touch his own script. Production had to start anyway. Warner Brothers had already committed to a $35 million budget. They couldn't wait. So they brought in Warren Scarron to rewrite while cameras were rolling. Scarron had worked on Top Gun and Beetlejuice, but this was different. The set was in London. Scenes were being filmed while he rewrote them. He removed Robin, gave the Joker more screen time, added a scene where Alfred let Vicky Vale into the Batcave. The budget ballooned from $30 million to $48 million. British writers were pulled in. Scripts changed overnight. Jack Nicholson, who played the Joker, was furious. He got pages the night before filming. One day, during the cathedral climax, he stopped mid-scene and asked, "Why am I walking up all these stairs?" Burton had no answer. He said, "We'll talk about it when you get to the top." Nicholson was earning $50 million from his profit deal, but even he couldn't hide his frustration. He wanted to know his character's motivation. But the truth was, no one really knew. They were writing and shooting at the same time. By Christmas 1988, the script was falling apart. John Peters had already spent $100,000 on a giant cathedral model without asking Burton. So Scarron flew to London days before Christmas to fix the third act. It was a week of emergency writing. They worked through the holidays to save the ending. That trip created the bell tower finale that everyone remembers. But it wasn't planned. It was built under pressure. Hundreds of memos flew around the studio. Executives were panicking. Everyone wanted changes. John Peters, Peter Guber, Terry Semel, Robert Daly, Lisa Henson, Mark Canton. Burton didn't even know about some of the decisions being made. The whole thing became a paper trail of fear. But somehow, it worked. In 1989, Batman changed Hollywood. The black suit, the brooding tone, the dark alleys of Gotham. It all felt new. But behind that famous bat symbol was a production so wild, so chaotic, it nearly collapsed under its own weight. And at the heart of it all was Jack Nicholson, who didn't just steal scenes as the Joker. He rewrote the rules of the entire film industry before cameras even rolled. Warner Brothers offered him $10 million to play the Joker. He turned it down. Then he made a deal no one had ever seen before. He asked for just $6 million up front, but also wanted a cut of the film's profits, and not just from ticket sales, but from toys, t-shirts, lunchboxes, action figures, anything with his face on it. He wanted 15 to 20% of the gross, with a clause that let his share increase as the movie made more money. Back then, superhero films weren't a sure thing. Batman could have flopped. But Jack saw the future. He saw how big it could be. That one contract became the blueprint for stars like Tom Cruise and Robert Downey Jr. His gamble worked. When Batman made $411 million at the box office and exploded in merchandise sales, Jack didn't just win. He broke every record. He walked away with around $60 million. Some say it reached closer to $90 million as the money kept rolling in from Joker-branded merchandise. It was the biggest payday any actor had ever seen. Schwarzenegger was making $20 to $30 million. Tom Cruise made $9 million for Days of Thunder. Jack was in another league, but that money didn't come easy. Jack threw himself into the role with a kind of energy that made people uneasy. He stayed in character even when the cameras stopped. He didn't go back to his trailer. He stayed the Joker. Crew members spent months on set in England walking on eggshells around a man who laughed like a lunatic, even off-screen. The production lasted over 100 days, and Jack originally asked to shoot all his scenes in just 3 weeks so he wouldn't miss Lakers games. That didn't happen, and the Joker never left. The makeup was a whole story by itself. Jack was allergic to spirit gum, the glue normally used in prosthetics, so the team had to switch to silicone adhesives. Every morning, he sat through 2 hours of makeup with special materials, including alcohol-soaked cloths that let him wipe off the fake flesh-colored paint to reveal the Joker's white skin underneath. He fought over his wig color, too. Burton wanted loud green. Jack thought it looked like Clarabelle the Clown. He won that argument. He also had final say on all the posters, trailers, and ads, a power no actor had before. The studio had to send him every promotional piece for approval. He controlled how the Joker looked on screen and off. That kind of marketing power hadn't existed in actor contracts before, but Jack made it normal for those who followed. While Jack was controlling his image, chaos was growing behind the scenes. Producer John Peters made a secret $100,000 decision that nearly broke the movie. Without telling Tim Burton, he ordered a giant 38-foot cathedral bell tower model built at Pinewood Studios. It was massive, detailed, expensive. Burton walked onto set one day and found this towering thing waiting for him with no script written for it. Peters had built it just to make the ending feel bigger. Burton panicked. The film was already over its $35 million budget. The stress hit hard. Burton said it felt like being trapped in a nightmare, where everything was too big and too small at once. They had no scene, no plan. The whole climax had to be made up on the spot. Jack Nicholson was halfway up the cathedral when he turned to Burton and asked, "Where am I going?" Burton didn't know. He told him, "We'll talk about it when you get to the top." Kim Basinger, in full costume, was climbing those stairs too, also confused. No one knew what their characters were supposed to do. They improvised the whole ending. Even the Joker's death, falling with a gargoyle attached to his leg, was figured out during filming. There were no polished lines, just instinct and pressure and cameras rolling. The script was changing every day. Colored pages were swapped in and out. Everyone was guessing. Everyone was pretending they had a plan. Peters had changed more than just the set. He was dating Kim Basinger, and that changed the story. Originally, Vicky Vale was supposed to die in the final act. Her death would have pushed Batman into a rage, leading to a brutal one-on-one showdown. But Peters didn't want to see Batman hit a 50-year-old man. So he rewrote everything, without Burton's input. Basinger's character lived, the cathedral was built, and the tone shifted. Peters even claimed she helped him write scenes while they lived together on set. Michael Keaton, who had a crush on Basinger, wasn't thrilled. That wasn't the original plan. The first Vicky Vale was Sean Young. She had trained for weeks, rehearsed scenes, even practiced horseback riding for a romantic scene that later got cut. 1 week before filming, she fell off the horse and broke her arm. They fired her immediately. The scene was never shot. Her injury became pointless. She later said they probably could have worked around it, but they didn't. She was walked off the lot. When Warner Brothers needed a replacement fast, they called Kim Basinger while she was in a parking garage. "How quickly can you get over here?" they asked. She flew to London with no script read, no costume fitting, no chemistry test. In one scene, her 3-inch heels hurt so badly that she said, "My feet are killing me," right in the take. And they kept the line. In another, she scraped off the Batmobile's Japanese paint, trying to get out, so she had to do it barefoot from then on. The script was rewritten around her on the fly. Even Jack Palance caused drama. The 70-year-old legend was cast as crime boss Carl Grissom. During his death scene, he missed his cue. Burton tried to guide him, but Palance snapped, "I've made over 100 films. How many have you made?" Burton was humiliated. Everyone saw it. Nicholson, the crew, the actors. But Palance stayed. He was right for the role, and Burton knew it. The Batmobile became another monster. It was nearly 20 feet long and had a working jet engine that shot 20-foot flames. It overheated often, caught fire more than once, and had to be rebuilt multiple times. Fire crews were always standing by. Its cockpit design, inspired by a Harrier jet, constantly jammed. The paint job was so delicate that actors kept scraping it off during takes. It had to be resprayed over and over, costing thousands each time. The budget bled money. What started at $30 million ballooned to $48 million. Burton had to rebuild sets, reshoot scenes, rewrite pages. The Writers Guild strike forced out Sam Hamm, and Burton had to rely on uncredited rewrites from others. Peters' cathedral surprise alone cost $100,000. Gotham's city set filled 18 sound stages and nearly all of Pinewood's 95 acres. Nothing was easy. Everything was expensive. Nicholson's deal alone added millions. From October 10, 1988 to February 14, 1989, Tim Burton was filming Batman at Pinewood Studios in England, and every single day, someone was watching him. Warner Brothers co-chairman Terry Semel kept flying across the Atlantic just to pace the Gotham City set. He didn't hide it either. Crew members joked about how many times he circled the set each day. They started betting on it. The set was huge, 51 acres, with 18 sound stages and 7 in constant use. But Semel still hovered like something was about to fall apart. Director Tim Burton later said that period was torture. It wasn't just the weight of directing his biggest film yet. It was the constant eyes, the fear that if anything went wrong, everything would collapse. And it nearly did. Batman wasn't just a movie. It was the backbone of a $14 billion merger. Time Inc. and Warner Communications were trying to become one company, and Batman's success was supposed to prove they were ready. Steve Ross, Time Warner's CEO, said it out loud in a call with Columbia Pictures' Mark Canton. He said the box office numbers could make the merger happen. That wasn't a metaphor. The deal was fragile. Paramount's Martin Davis was already trying to take over, offering $175 a share for Time stock, then raising it to $200. Time's stock had been sitting at $135 before all this. The only thing that pushed the deal through was Batman. When the movie made over $400 million worldwide, it gave the company enough confidence to fight off the takeover and close the deal in August 1989. Ross even showed up at the Washington, D.C. premiere on June 23rd, his first movie theater visit in a decade, while lawyers battled Paramount in court. Back at Pinewood, Mark Canton, Warner Brothers' production chief, wanted full control. He set up hourly update systems. Phone lines and fax machines ran non-stop. Canton wanted everything reported: the number of takes, the mood of the cast, what Jack Nicholson had for lunch. The system was so detailed and expensive that Warner Brothers spent around $50,000 just on international communication during the 80-day shoot and 86 days of second unit filming. These faxes and reports tracked daily weather, footage, call times, and any hiccup that might shake the schedule. The paper trail became so revealing that it had to be hidden during merger negotiations just so investors wouldn't see how shaky everything really was. And things did get shaky. The first test screenings were a disaster. Audiences didn't understand the ending. The pacing felt strange. Some hated that the Joker was supposed to kill Vicky Vale. Warner Brothers considered massive reshoots that would cost $15 million, half the original $30 million budget, which had already ballooned to $48 million. John Peters, the film's volatile producer, had built a giant 38-foot cathedral set for $100,000 without even telling Burton. It had no real narrative purpose. During filming, Jack Nicholson literally turned around and asked, "Why am I walking up all these stairs? Where am I going?" Burton didn't have an answer. He told Jack, "We'll talk about it when you get to the top." They made it up as they went. At the same time, Steve Ross flew to the set with one message for Burton: "Fix this, or you'll never work in Hollywood again." Burton was 30 years old. This was his first blockbuster. He had producers rewriting the script without asking him. He had executives watching his every move. And now the CEO of Time Warner was threatening to kill his career. The pressure broke him. He cried on set. Jack Nicholson tried to comfort him, telling him to focus and not let them get to him. But nothing felt under control. Michael Keaton was falling apart too. The Batsuit gave him panic attacks. It stuck to his face, squeezed his body, and made it impossible to turn his head. He said, "I was very claustrophobic. The first time I was locked in, I thought, this is never going to happen." They had to prop him up between takes with wooden boards. But instead of quitting, Keaton used the fear. He poured it into Bruce Wayne. The result was a Batman who felt dark and broken and isolated, and it worked. Meanwhile, John Peters was causing more drama off-camera. He started an affair with Kim Basinger, who was married to makeup artist Ron Snyder. Peters claimed Snyder was abusive and said he even confronted him. Michael Keaton had feelings for Basinger too, and he was furious. Peters bragged later that Keaton felt rejected. "He's Batman," Peters said. "He thought he should have the girl." Peters even claimed Basinger helped him write the third act. The set was chaotic, with people arguing about scenes, rewriting dialogue, and stepping over personal boundaries. Burton was often the last to know what was going on. There were bigger arguments too. Sam Hamm, the original screenwriter, hated the idea of making Joker the killer of Bruce Wayne's parents. He said it ruined the whole point of Batman. Instead of a long emotional journey, it turned into a revenge story. He argued that once Bruce kills the man who murdered his parents, he doesn't need to be Batman anymore. Hamm wanted a symbolic story. The studio wanted something clean and dramatic. The executives won. By the time June 23, 1989 arrived, everything changed. Batman opened in 294 theaters and made $42.7 million that weekend. It broke Ghostbusters the Thaghunu's record of $29.4 million from just 1 week earlier. It crushed Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade's 4-day Memorial Day total of $37 million. Thursday previews alone made $2.2 million across 1,215 screens. The per-screen average was $18,455, and it set new single-day records for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Warner Brothers didn't even need the preview numbers to break records. The weekend itself would have done it. And then came the real explosion: merchandise. The bat symbol was on everything: hats, t-shirts, cereal boxes, soda cans, jackets, mugs, candy, you name it. Before most people even saw the film, they were buying the brand. Batman merchandise made $750 million worldwide, more than the movie itself. Once sequels were added in, licensing topped $1 billion. Hollywood had never seen anything like it. This was the first time a movie became a full brand. From now on, every big film would be marketed like a product line, not just a story. Batman didn't just sell tickets and toys, it became part of the culture. The bat symbol was everywhere, shaved into people's heads, printed on jackets, stuck to car bumpers, glowing on bus stops. It became a logo as famous as Coca-Cola or McDonald's. The poster didn't even show Batman, just the symbol and the date, June 23rd. That was enough. Critics didn't like it at first. Roger Ebert said it was style over substance. Some called it empty. But the audiences loved it. Slowly, the critics came around too. People started noticing the design, the music, the shadows. Danny Elfman's score, Michael Keaton's performance, Jack Nicholson's madness. All of it began to feel important. It wasn't just a superhero movie, it was something else, something darker, something that stuck. By the end, Batman had made $411.6 million worldwide on a $48 million budget. It became the fastest movie to reach $100 million, doing it in just 11 days. In North America, it made $251.4 million, beating Indiana Jones at home even though it lost worldwide. It stayed the highest-grossing Warner Brothers movie until Twister in 1996. It was the top DC Comics movie until The Dark Knight in 2008, and the biggest superhero movie until Spider-Man in 2002. It sold 60 million tickets in the US and added $150 million in home video. Yet somehow, Warner Brothers still claimed it lost $35.8 million, Hollywood accounting at its finest. In 1989, people lined up around city blocks to see a superhero movie like no one had seen before. Batman didn't just entertain, it exploded. It made $401.1 million around the world and rewrote the future of Hollywood. It was dark, stylish, and serious, and it didn't just stay on the screen. That one movie sparked a franchise that still hasn't slowed down. Over the years, Batman films have made over $6.8 billion, and that includes Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy, where two of the sequels crossed $1 billion each. But it didn't stop with movies. Batman, the animated series, came right after, and from that grew the entire DC animated universe. Shows like Static Shock, Teen Titans, and many others became more familiar to most people than the original comics ever were. The shelves filled up with Batman toys, posters, cereal boxes, T-shirts, video games, and action figures. Hundreds of millions in merchandise flew out of stores, proving something that no one had truly understood before. Superhero films weren't just films anymore. They were empires. Studios took notes. Marvel watched. DC doubled down. This was the blueprint for the shared universe idea that rules the box office today. But when the movie was first announced, there was a problem. A big one. The man they chose to play Batman wasn't a tough guy. He wasn't a brooding star with a square jaw and a deep voice. It was Michael Keaton, the guy from Mr. Mom, the guy who danced around in Beetlejuice. Fans were furious. Warner Brothers received more than 50,000 letters from angry people who couldn't believe a comedian was being cast as the Dark Knight. This was 1988, before Twitter and online petitions, so those letters had to be written by hand, mailed in, and counted one by one. That had never happened before. Fans were terrified that the movie would go back to the campy style of the 1960s Adam West show instead of following the darker stories from Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns. Even Keaton wasn't sure he could pull it off. But Tim Burton saw something no one else did. He said, "I love Michael because he has a certain energy. You look in his eyes and he seems intelligent, scary, crazy, everything, all at once." When the film finally came out, the backlash vanished. Keaton's Batman wasn't goofy. He was intense, quiet, angry, broken. His Bruce Wayne was a recluse, and his Batman was a shadow that made criminals shake. That performance became the model for all Batman actors after him. What seemed like a casting disaster turned into his defining role. But all of it almost didn't happen. Tucked away in the University of Texas archives are boxes of documents from Warren Scarron, the man who secretly saved the movie. He wasn't the original writer. Sam Hamm wrote the early drafts. But Scarron was the script doctor who fixed it when the studio panicked. His files include everything: notes, charts, memos, outlines, scene breakdowns, and, most importantly, his own marked-up draft of the final script. He scribbled on it, highlighted sections, and rewrote the ending several times. The bell tower fight at the end? That was reworked between December 1988 and January 1989 in a flurry of changes just before filming locked. Inside his notes is a document called the Batman Arbitration Statement, written between February and March 1989. It laid out exactly what he contributed. One fax, sent to him on June 24, 1989, right after Batman's record-breaking opening weekend, shows Warner Brothers in full panic mode before the film even launched. They were still doubting Burton's vision. They were still unsure about Keaton. The only reason it all came together was because Scarron stitched it into shape behind the scenes. Without him, there might never have been a Batman movie. Not like this.